Welcome back, y'all. What's happening out there in WBB land? We are back with another video, and this is a 13-part series that will chronicle every team's 2025 offseason. Each video will detail every team's current roster, their salary cap and assets, as well as look at free agent targets, needs, and an overall trajectory for the upcoming 2025 WNBA season. Without further ado, let's get it popping. The Las Vegas Aces, former juggernauts of the WNBA, are looking to bounce back after a disappointing but predictable exit in the semifinal round of the eventual champion New York Liberty last season. We know they have the best player on the planet in A'ja Wilson. We know they have a backcourt of Hall of Famers. But the question I want to answer is that even close to enough to win in 2025? In this video, we're going to break down their current roster, available salary, their needs for 25, as well as two distinct scenarios on how I think Vegas's offseason could likely play out. One of which will break up the core four, but also make them a much better team headed into this next season.
We have to get better. We have to really take a sharp look at ourselves, look ourselves in the mirror, see our shortcomings, and then, you got to make the moves necessary, whatever that means, to put the best product that we possibly can. It's not going to be the same group probably next year. It just won't.
That was Becky Hammon immediately after the Game 4 loss and the season-ending defeat to New York. And while emotions run high at times like this, what she said was completely accurate. They need to take a hard look at themselves. They need to work on the deficiencies, which were glaring by comparison to the Liberty. Length, versatility, perimeter defense, any type of bench whatsoever. And part of this I put on Becky Hammon. She's got to take a look at herself in the mirror. Las Vegas was the only team in the WNBA last year to have two players in the top 5 minutes per game. A'ja Wilson, Kelsey Plum. And Jackie Young was 13th in the league in minutes per game, all of whom were Olympians. If you want to make the argument that she had to play her stars because she didn't trust her bench, that's fine. I'm just here to tell you running your stars into the ground in an Olympic year is not the recipe to win another title. Moreover, if you're relying on A'ja Wilson to score 28 points, 14 rebounds, and 3 blocks in order to win a July game, I think the priority metrics need to be recalibrated. This is, of course, all to say there is plenty to work on for this Aces team, but I do think they can climb back to the mountaintop. And like I said off the top, we're going to go through two scenarios. Scenario 1 will be if they bring Kelsey Plum back. Scenario 2, which I think should be the goal, is to move Kelsey Plum ahead of the 2025 season. Now, in both scenarios, Kelsey Plum will be the core designation, locking her into that 1-year Supermax $249,000 contract. Here we can see that takes the Aces payroll to $1.1 million with at least 4 roster spots still yet to fill. With only $400,000 to fill those spots, this makes Las Vegas's offseason extremely precarious. The next most obvious move I see in both scenarios is Las Vegas locking in the previously unsigned draftee from a year ago, Liz Kitley. Presumably with Kate Martin being selected by the Golden State Valkyries, it's pretty safe to assume the Aces did protect Kitley so that they could sign her. This addresses a need for front court depth. It gets another player on a very affordable contract to have at least a little maneuverability moving forward. This puts Las Vegas at 8 contract players with $338,000 left to spend. If we go ahead and throw in both of their second-round draft picks, they will then have a whisker over $200,000 to spend on those remaining 2 contracts. Needless to say, this isn't addressing pretty much any of the deficiencies that we saw at the end of last year. Even if we were completely generous with the rest of this build and they were able to sign Alicia Clark and Tiffany Hayes on team-friendly 1-year deals, which I do think is possible, this is what the 12-player roster would look like. short of Liz Kitley being an absolute revelation, you're going to run into the very same problems that you saw last year. Now, don't get me wrong, folks. This is still obviously a very good team. It's just not good enough to win a title, in my opinion. Now let's look at scenario 2, which is a build that I think can compete for a title in 2025. As you can see here, the first two steps are the same. You go ahead and core Kelsey Mitchell to the 1-year Supermax. You go ahead and sign Liz Kitley to her deal, and then you pick up the phone. In this scenario, you're calling a specific team, but to be clear, I think there are several teams that would be in the market for a Kelsey Plum. In this scenario, however, I see one very specific team that would love Kelsey Plum on their opening day roster. Let's take a look at what I think the trade proposal would look like. That's right, folks. I see Kelsey Plum headed west, leading the new expansion Golden State Valkyries into their first season in the WNBA, and I think this trade makes sense for both teams. From Golden State's perspective, I think this is an absolute no-brainer. You get a perennial all-star, you get a potential scoring champ, and most importantly, you get a bona fide face of the franchise as you're entering your first year in the league. From Las Vegas's perspective, you address several of your deficiencies. You add depth, you add length, you add versatility, you add perimeter defense. You don't lose shooting, as Steph Talbot and Kayla Thornton are very capable 3-and-D players. You save money on the deal, which enables you to go out and address some of your other interior needs. And while it's hard to fathom the Las Vegas Aces without the core four, I think this deal makes the Aces significantly better. Looking at Vegas's updated cap sheet, this would give them 9 contract players totaling a payroll of $1.156 million, and they would have $350,000 to spend on the remaining 3 roster spots. By any metrics, a much more advantageous place to be than if they had the 1-year Supermax Kelsey Plum contract still on the books. Now, if we assume Vegas is able to sign Tip Hayes to that 1-year $100,000 contract, which, by the way, of all of their current unrestricted free agents will surely be their highest priority, now you have 10 contract players and $250,000 left to spend. Go ahead and throw that second round 16th overall selection in, and now you have an 11-player roster with a payroll totaling $1.325, and more importantly, you have $181,000 to spend on a potential big-ticket free agent. As far as specific players I think the Aces will and should target, I've broken them down into 2 tiers. The first tier is players that will likely go for the max or near max, that you will likely have to pitch on your vision, that they are the final missing piece to a 2025 title. Of course, that's Brianna Jones, Natasha Howard, and Cheyenne Parker-Tyus. Tier 2 are players you can certainly land for the $181,000 or less, and potentially, if you don't sign your second round draft pick, sign 2 of them. And that's, of course, Tina Charles, Isabel Harrison, and Elena Deladon. All 6 players address a desperate need for Las Vegas to expand their front court depth and their front court scoring so that Asia Wilson isn't so heavily relied on every single night. But as always, I pass the question to you. What do you think Las Vegas's path to a 2025 title looks like? Who are the key free agents you would target? And most importantly, do you think they should trade Kelsey Plum? Write in the comments, let me know. As always, like, share, and hey, hit that subscribe button. It's free.